President/mouthpiece Masoud Pezeshkian said that the morality police will not bother women.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to the program. In just 24 hours, Americans all across the country will head to the polls to elect a new president. We're here in Washington, D.C. with all the latest updates. But before we get a look at that, here's a look at the latest headlines. Vice President Kamala Harris vows to end the war in Gaza if elected to the White House. She also pledges to oversee the return of hostages still being kept captive by Hamas. Donald Trump calls the United States a country occupied by migrants at his final rally in Georgia. The Republicans' anti-immigrant rhetoric peaks in the final voting day with just less than 24 hours before voters head to the polls. Khalistani extremists assault Hindu devotees in a temple in Canada's Brampton. New Delhi calls the attack deeply disturbing and demands a full investigation into the violence. Iran says it is preparing to use more powerful weapons against Israel that were not used in previous attacks. This after Washington told Tehran that it will not be able to restrain Israel if Iran carries out another attack. And Bolivia's former president Evo Morales accuses the government of ignoring dialogue and negotiations over power sharing. This after the ex-president's supporters stormed a military base and took 200 soldiers hostage over the weekend. Begin with the race for the White House with just one day to go before voters head to the polls. Both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump campaigned in swing states over the weekend. With D-Day just a blink of an eye away, Donald Trump made some unusual and concerning comments. Speaking at a rally in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump said he regrets leaving the White House in 2021, stoking fear among many. Several voters have raised concerns that Donald Trump may try to incite his supporters once again if he loses this election as well. Democrats are concerned that MAGA supporters may support a mob-style attack as seen on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol if Donald Trump does in fact lose again. In a bid to rile up his supporters even more, the Republican presidential nominee again made allegations of voter fraud without providing any evidence for these claims.
They are fighting so hard to steal this damn thing. Look at what's going on. Look at what's going on in your state. Every day, they're talking about extending hours and stuff. Who ever heard of this stuff? We should have one-day voting and paper ballots. And they want to lock you up. They want to put you in jail. The ones that should be locked up are the ones that cheat on these horrible elections that we go through in our country. And I don't know what's going to happen. But for future elections, I won't be even a part of it. But you ought to damn well go to paper ballots. You ought to go to voter ID. And you ought to have the election over by 9 o'clock. I'm hearing now they're going to take weeks. Can you imagine? They spend all this money on machines, and they're going to say, we may take an extra 12 days to determine.
Meanwhile, Kamala Harris dismissed Donald Trump's allegations and called the voter fraud claims a diversionary tactic from the fact that the Republican could, in fact, lose this election.
I would ask, in particular, people who have not yet voted, to not fall for his tactic, which I think includes suggesting to people that if they vote, their vote won't matter. Suggesting to people that somehow the integrity of our voting system is not intact so that they don't vote. And again, I think that it is a tactic. It is meant to distract from the fact that we have and support free and fair elections in our country. We did in 2020. He lost. And the systems that are in place for this election in 2024 have integrity. They are good systems, and the vote of the people will determine the outcome of this election.
However, Donald Trump continued with his rants through the weekend as he spoke about surviving assassination attempts and suggested he would prefer that some journalists get shot the next time he's targeted.
It has to do with a little bit of intelligence, and I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there. And I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind.
Now, after these dangerous comments, the Republicans were in damage control as they tried to pass off Donald Trump's comments as a joke. Donald Trump seems to be attacking journalists and media outlets that have debunked his misinformed claims throughout this election, including fake news about Haitian immigrants eating cats and dogs, to electoral fraud in swing states and AI-generated content on social media. Donald Trump's last few days have been less about policy and more about vile and racist attacks and what can only be seen as desperate attempts to reach out to MAGA supporters to get out and vote on November 5th. And staying with the race for the White House, a new poll shows former President Donald Trump facing a setback in Iowa. The Vice President Kamala Harris is now seen as surpassing him by 3 points in the Granite State. According to the Des Moines Register poll, 47% of likely voters in Iowa prefer Kamala Harris, while 44% support Donald Trump. The poll comes as a shock to the former president, who easily clinched the state both in 2016 and 2020. Moreover, the same poll in September showed the Republican presidential nominee ahead of his Democratic rival by 4 points. Pollster J.N. Seltzer, who conducted the poll and whose estimations have a reputation of being highly accurate, says she was shocked by the poll results as anyone else was. Seltzer added that women voters and young people are the demographics that are actually fueling Kamala Harris's potential victory in Iowa.
One of the things we found in September, and it remains in place now, is that the number of people in our poll who qualified as a likely voter, that is, they've already voted or they say they will definitely vote in the future, increased. And that increase was among demographic groups favorable to Democrats generally, Kamala Harris specifically. So women and younger people and those with a college education, there are probably a couple more groups in there.
Now, as we've already noted, Donald Trump has in fact disputed the latest poll, saying that the great state of Iowa loves him, and he called the pollster corrupt.
By the way, the polls are just as corrupt as some of the writers back there. They can make those polls sing. They can make them sing. They brag about it. I got a poll, I'm 10 points up in Iowa. One of my enemies just puts out a poll, I'm 3 down. Joni Ernst called me, everyone's called me. They said, you're killing in Iowa. The farmers love me and I love them. But they came up, they just announced a fake poll. Hey, think of it. Right before the election, that I'm 3 points down. I'm not down in Iowa.
The former president called the poll a clear outlier and said that another poll by Emerson College was a better reflection of the situation in Iowa. The latest Emerson College poll has starkly different results, with Donald Trump leading Kamala Harris by 10 points. The poll also shows that the ex-president is having strong advantages among men and independents, while the vice president is performing well among young voters under the age of 30. Now, the last time a Democrat won in Iowa was in 2012 when former President Barack Obama swept the deep red state. Barack Obama also won Iowa in 2008. But if the Des Moines, Iowa poll holds true and Kamala Harris wins the state this time, she will collect 6 electoral college votes, which are crucial when almost every poll is showing nearly a tie between the two candidates. And with early voting now over, more than 77 million Americans have cast their ballots through mail or in person in early voting this year. While this number is lower than the early vote turnout of more than 100 million in 2020, it's still significantly higher than most previous elections. The surge in early voting shows that the lasting change in voting patterns across the United States, which were accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. This year, voters in swing states looked more enthusiastic than usual, as each of the 7 battleground states has recorded at least 1 million early ballots.
Well, it adds a little more excitement to the atmosphere, and it just really shows the importance of getting out there and choosing the right candidate, because our country's been through hell, and the last 4 years have not been good. If you look at the prices of the groceries and inflation, and the possible wars on the horizon, I think we need a president in office like President Trump that can set this country on the right path.
Both North Carolina and Georgia broke records on the first day of early voting, and Georgia has even surpassed the 2020 turnout with more than 4 million ballots.
Very proud that the voters are taking this election serious and doing their civic duty. And I'm very proud of the poll workers.
Now, some credit the higher voter turnout to Donald Trump, who, after spending years asserting that early voting was unreliable, showed openness to the process this time around.
So if you want to end this disaster, you got to get out and vote. Just go out and vote. You got to get out. We have to put it away. We're close. We're so close. You know, usually the Republicans are losing in the first week in the early voting. And we did something that has not been done. I don't think, Speaker, it's been done yet, but it's been done for us. We're leading every one of the swing states, all 7 of them. So.
Data shows that out of the 77 million early votes cast, around 41% have been cast by registered Democrats and 39% by registered Republicans. The number suggests that Republican voters did follow Donald Trump's advice and decided to vote early this year.
I think what Turning Point is doing, going out and asking the Republicans who didn't usually vote to go out and vote, is going to help make a big difference.
Now all eyes are on tomorrow's historic voting, as tens of millions of voters will head to the polls to elect the next president of the United States. And in the final stretch of the election, the Trump-Vance campaign is pushing through with grit and determination in hopes of turning out the base. However, amid the high stakes, an unexpected gourmet topic has surfaced: cottage cheese. JD Vance and podcast host Joe Rogan went viral for their conversation on Indian vegetarian cuisine. Once a meat and potatoes traditionalist, Vance shared how his marriage to Usha, an Indian American, opened his eyes to the richness of Indian vegetarian food. Our next report dives deeper into the culinary twist this election season.
Senator JD Vance has the overwhelming...
In one of the more unexpected turns in U.S. political dialogue, Donald Trump's vice presidential choice, JD Vance, and podcast host Joe Rogan recently tackled a unique topic: paneer, also known as cottage cheese. Now, Vance and Rogan are known for their fiery opinions on current issues, but they found common ground exploring the authenticity of real food, their distaste for plant-based meats, and the transformative flavors of Indian cooking. The Ohio senator admitted that as a self-proclaimed meat and potatoes guy, he once saw vegetarianism as bland and unappealing. But things changed when he married his Indian-American wife, Usha Vance. She introduced him to a world of vibrant vegetarian dishes that didn't pretend to mimic meat. Vance's culinary awakening wasn't all smooth though. He recounted one of his first attempts at vegetarian cooking, a pizza made from crescent roll dough, raw broccoli and ranch dressing baked for a staggering 45 minutes. Even though the result was less than appetizing, it sparked his curiosity about the complexities of authentic vegetarian cuisine. Joe Rogan, who's also a vocal critic of the processed food industry, chipped in with his skepticism, calling plant-based meats highly processed garbage. Rogan argued that if people wanted to follow a vegetarian lifestyle, they didn't need lab-created substitutes. Have real food, he suggested. Vance, now a fan of dishes like paneer, Indian-style chickpeas and rice, described how Indian vegetarian cuisine has completely shifted his understanding of food that doesn't include meat.
Now, I've had such an...
He realized it wasn't just about replacing meat, but embracing vegetables in all their flavor-packed glory. Both people remarked on the variety and satisfaction Indian dishes provide, turning vegetarian food into a genuine culinary experience rather than a compromise. Just like Donald Trump, Vance's conversation with Rogan was more than 3 hours long. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, has not and will not be sitting down for any 3-hour-long interviews before the campaign season ends. During the interview, Rogan often signaled agreement with Vance throughout the conversation and on several occasions questioned Harris's fitness for office. But as Vance described his evolving tastes among a wide range of topics, a surprising question emerged. Could America's rising interest in authentic Indian cuisine signal a push to gather the Indian American votes? Because, as they say, in India, the best way to win hearts is through the stomach.
And now an unexpected figure has taken center stage as this year's presidential election in the final days. A squirrel named Peanut. Once a social media star, Peanut's sudden death has become a major talking point for Donald Trump's campaign. On one hand, you have JD Vance, who has questioned the government's priorities. And on the other, you have Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk, who has criticized the Biden administration, calling it a mindless and heartless killing machine. Here's our final report on how a beloved pet became a political flashpoint.
In the final stretch of the US presidential campaign, a surprising issue has captivated national attention: the death of Peanut, a pet squirrel turned social media fame. What began as a local dispute over wildlife regulations has now become a rallying cry for Donald Trump and his supporters. The controversy began when New York wildlife officials from the Department of Environmental Conservation seized Peanut from his owner, Mark Longo, after receiving reports of unsafe housing for wildlife. The 7-year-old squirrel had amassed a following of over 500,000 Instagram fans, with videos of his playful antics gaining widespread popularity. However, Peanut bit a DEC official during the seizure, and authorities ultimately euthanized him, citing the need to test for rabies. Along with Peanut, a raccoon named Fred was also found on the same property, and he too was put down.
Hi everyone. I don't know how I'm going to say this. I just want to say thank you to all of you. Peanut was the best thing that ever happened to us. And we got confirmation that they put him down. I want to continue to fight this fight as much as I can, but we need all of you to come together and help us. Please continue to help us raise money for the ongoing legal battles, and for our nonprofit, so we could keep Peanut's name alive. Thank you all.
Peanut's death has sparked outrage, with Trump's running mate JD Vance seizing the moment to criticize the Biden administration during a rally in Sanford, North Carolina.
The same government that doesn't care about hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrant criminals coming into our country doesn't want us to have pets. It's the craziest thing.
New York Congressman Nick Langworthy also chimed in, calling the state's response to Peanut's case an unannounced raid, and accusing Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul of having misguided priorities. The backlash was swift and massive. Peanut's owner also took to Instagram to vow legal action, sharing the hashtag #JusticeForPeanut. Meanwhile, high-profile figures like Trump's staunchest ally, Elon Musk, also joined hands to the chorus of criticism. The Tesla CEO slammed the Biden administration, calling them a mindless and heartless killing machine. In a nod to Peanut's cultural moment, he shared an AI-generated image of the squirrel as Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars, quipping, "If you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you could possibly imagine," under the nickname Obi-Peanut Kenobi. Amid the high-stakes election, Trump and his allies are using this incident as an opportunity to draw contrasts with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. President Donald Trump will save the squirrels, Musk tweeted, aiming directly at the Biden administration. The saga of Peanut the squirrel, a beloved pet caught in the crossfire of a heated election, has become a symbol for many larger questions about government power and priorities. With just 24 hours left until the election, the focus on this furry social media star has given Trump's camp fresh material to energize their base and to target Joe Biden and Kamala Harris once again.
That's our show for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here tomorrow. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Washington is all set for a presidential battle like no other.
In less than 90 days, it's either going to be him or me sitting in the Oval Office.
Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump.
All we want is one simple thing. Get out on Tuesday.
A vice president versus a former president. As we head towards election night, Vantage will be live from the heart of the action. Speaking to voters in this final stretch,
I'm still very undecided.
Very close presidential race.
Tracking the campaigns as they make the last push. From exclusive ground reports to in-depth analysis, this is your one-stop destination for the presidential race. Join us on this special edition of Vantage, live from the White House in Washington, D.C.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House